Greetings YouTubers, welcome to my video. This video is going to be exploring the fourth and fifth fetters. Now before I really get into this video, I'll just let you know my own take on the fourth and fifth fetters, and my thoughts regarding the fetters haven't fully been set in concrete. So this is just a kind of sketchy take on the fourth and fifth fetters, just from where I'm coming from at the moment. I probably will make a definitive video later on, once I've finally really established my own understanding of these fetters, but this is just an introduction, and it's a video I wanted to make to sketch down some ideas. What are the fourth and fifth fetters? Well, the fourth and fifth fetters are desire and aversion, and that is it addresses directly mental suffering caused by our dislike of this present moment. Whether right now we want something and we can't attain it, or we don't want something and we can't get rid of it. I specifically say mental suffering because that's what we're addressing. Obviously suffering, for example, if you've stubbed your toe, which is physical pain, it's like, okay, that's not what I'm addressing, because that is just physical pain. This is more along the lines of anxiety, depression, caused by our own ideas and beliefs about what we believe is happening to us and what is happening in the world. And desire and aversion can be also described as like the constant push and pull against life. That right now there's something wrong because I need that and I can't have it, or I don't want this and I can't get rid of it. So that's the fourth and fifth fetters, and they're often addressed together, as you can see, because they kind of match each other as a push and pull against life. Now, because it's the fourth and fifth fetters, it means that the first three fetters are broken. So the rest of my description is from that perspective. In particular, the first fetter has been broken, and there's no longer a belief that there is a real self. There's no longer the belief that there is a real inherent self. But we are still left with desire and aversion. So let's look at a very simple example to allow us to break down into pieces and examine the fourth and fifth fetters to see how it operates in like a real world example. So a simple example, let's say someone is shouting at you, someone is hurling abuse, and that is unpleasant. You don't want that, you wish they were not doing that, and that is causing you a reaction. Well, no matter what it is, it could be anger, it could be depression, it could be fear, it could be anxiety, a whole host of possible reactions. But we'll take that as a first example. Now the first thing to mention is, say somebody suddenly starts shouting at you, often there is a natural sudden tensing of the body. And you often see this in animals when they're startled, that it's suddenly, and there's a tension, and it's fight or flight sort of thing. The start of fight or flight, like, I'm scared, what should I do? And that's completely natural in all animals, and that's nothing directly to do with the fourth and fifth fetter. That's just a completely natural bodily reaction. But what can happen then as a result of a subtle belief in the self is that a couple of things happen. First of all, there will be some sort of physical reaction, which could be anything that, again, depends on what particular reaction you're doing, like tensing up, a heat feeling, a tension in the arms, tension in the chest, heat in the face, that sort of stuff. And also, coupled with that, there will be a subtle psychological belief. It's not actually a thought that comes up, it's more psychological, that whatever's happening right now is not what I want. And because this is not what I want, something has to happen. So we go into these reactionary modes, no matter what it is, anxiety, depression, anger, in an attempt to fix the situation. That's what we do. We think, subconsciously perhaps, that this is going to fix the situation. That's why we do it. And yet, it never does fix the situation. Depression never fixes anything. Anxiety never fixes anything. Now, the inquiry, as much as I see it, is whereabouts is the self that needs to react? In the first fetter, many things would have been examined, and at no stage was an inherently real self found, and hence the fetter was broken and it was realised that there was no self. But there still remains a desire and aversion as the fourth and fifth fetter. But it is still, I believe, an examination for the belief in some sort of self that needs to react. And I say that because why the reaction? Why the need to go into depression, anger, anxiety, if not that there was some sort of person here, I, self, reacting? If it was completely clear that there was no self and no self to give a reaction, then the person would be shouting and hurling abuse, and there would be no need to go into any sort of reactive mode, because it's completely clear that there is no inherently existing self or person that the anger is being directed at. And if that's clear, why exactly is there a need to react? Of course, you can react completely sensibly and on the level by saying, stop that, you're out of order, I don't want that to happen, stop. But that doesn't come from any sort of anger reaction, it comes from a neutral place where you're completely free to take whatever action you deem necessary to correctly diffuse the situation. Now, the tricky thing I can think of why a lot of people get stuck with this particular inquiry, or maybe not even start the inquiry at all, is because once you've gone into the reaction itself, the anger, the depression, the anxiety, the inquiry would then be what self is reacting. This is an important distinction. So if you've gone into the reaction, the inquiry will be on the reaction itself. What self is reacting? That's not quite what we're looking at specifically with fourth and fifth, which is why it's tricky, as far as I understand. It would be more along the lines of, in this example, when a person shouts at you and you get an initial response, where is the self that needs to react? I mean, in an initial moment like that, it will be tricky, so we can actually try and make an easier example for inquiry, which you could do by yourself. Say something, you know there is something unpleasant that you often think of, and it makes you feel a reaction, depressed, anger. Just by thinking about it gives you the reaction. You could use that fact for the inquiry. But you would have to make sure that you do not go into the reactive state. Instead, you would do this process. You would think of the normal thing that you would think of, which generates the reaction. And as you were thinking of it, and as we would normally say that the reaction would come up and you would get into that mode, at that moment, inquire, where is the self that needs to react? And to break fourth and fifth, as I can see it at the moment, is the realization, just like with the first fetter, that there is no self there at all that needs to react. And as I say, I'll just go over that point again, because that was the crux of it as I see it at the moment. If you are reacting, if you are anxious, if you are depressed, if you are sad, that is a different inquiry, because it's more along the lines of, where is the self that is sad? Where is the self that is anxious? Where is the self? And that's perfectly acceptable for inquiry. but it's not the fourth and fifth, because the fourth and fifth is the actual moment of reaction itself. So if you're looking at the reaction, you've gone too far. Instead, the inquiry is, where is the self that needs to react? Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. If you have your own take on the fetters, or maybe you have a better way of describing them or a better understanding of them, and you think I might benefit, then please, leave a message down below. Always interested to have my knowledge increased. As I say, I'm not perfect, just trying to give the information as I see it at the present time. Thank you for watching. See you again in the next video. Bye for now.